What happens when the heart of an empire, untouched for 1,000 years, finally stops beating? When the strongest walls fall, and a civilization once thought eternal collapses in a single moment? Constantinople wasn't just another city on the map. It was power. It was faith. It was a legacy. And when it fell, it didn't just change who ruled a patch of land. It changed the way the world moved, bought, and traded. This isn't just about battles and cannons. This is about the collapse of the old world and the birth of the new. Stick around as we uncover how one city's end became everyone's turning point. Right here on the Edutaining History channel. A city that refused to be ordinary. Can a city carry the weight of 2 continents and still stand proud? Can bricks and stone turn into legends that shape the world's future? Constantinople didn't just sit between Europe and Asia. It ruled the space between ideas, religions, and empires. Built by Constantine the Great, it was more than just a capital. It was meant to outlive Rome, and in many ways it did. The city had a kind of magic. Massive walls that stood like guardians for centuries. Streets filled with traders from every corner of the known world. Churches, mosques, and palaces told stories in gold and marble. You didn't just walk through Constantinople, you experienced it. It stood as the ultimate prize for every army, but none could touch it. Not until Mehmed came along. Even the Mongols, who burned entire empires to ashes, bypassed it. But no wall lasts forever, and no city, no matter how mighty, escapes time. The siege that changed everything. What kind of man looks at an undefeated city and sees it as a challenge, not a warning? What drives a 21-year-old sultan to believe he could do what hundreds before him couldn't? Mehmed wasn't just aiming for victory. He was aiming for immortality. He gathered one of the most advanced armies of the time, not just in size, but in strategy and technology. His secret weapon. Cannons, but not just any cannons. The kind that shattered walls thought to be unbreakable. Constantinople didn't fall overnight. The siege lasted 53 days. The defenders were vastly outnumbered, but they fought like they had nothing left to lose, and they didn't. Behind those walls were not just soldiers, but families, faith, and the fading light of an empire that had lasted over 1,000 years. Still, the odds were too great. On May 29, 1453, the walls gave in, the city gates were overrun, and the mighty capital fell. But that moment wasn't just about a flag changing on a pole. It marked a dramatic shift that rippled across the globe. A trade world flipped upside down. What happens when your shortcut to the east suddenly closes? When your silk, spices, and silver are now behind enemy lines? That's what Europe faced when the Ottomans took Constantinople. For centuries, it had been the highway of commerce, connecting the riches of Asia with the hungry markets of Europe. But now, the rules had changed. The Ottomans controlled the flow, and they weren't always generous with their new toll booth. European powers, desperate to keep their economies alive, started looking elsewhere. New trade routes had to be found. Ships began venturing farther into unknown waters. And just like that, the age of exploration wasn't a dream anymore. It was survival. Without the fall of Constantinople, Columbus may never have sailed west. Vasco da Gama might never have rounded the Cape of Good Hope. The world map was about to get rewritten, all because one city fell. Books over spears and the birth of a new era. Can the destruction of a city ignite a fire of knowledge across a continent? When Constantinople fell, it wasn't just soldiers who scattered. It was scholars too. Thinkers, artists, and teachers fled west, carrying precious manuscripts and ideas that had been preserved for centuries. These weren't dusty old scrolls. They were the works of Plato, Aristotle, and countless other minds, whose words would now breathe new life into a place called Renaissance Europe. Italy, France, and others suddenly found themselves flooded with new knowledge. Libraries expanded. Universities flourished. Artists like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci started painting with inspiration that stretched back to ancient Greece. Without those fleeing minds and those ancient texts, the Renaissance might have been a flicker instead of a flame. One city's loss became an entire continent's gain. Faiths collide and shift paths. What happens when a city sacred to one faith becomes the crown jewel of another? For Christians, Constantinople was a holy place. It was the heart of Eastern Orthodoxy. The Hagia Sophia, with its massive dome and golden mosaics, was a symbol of Christian glory. When the Ottomans took over, it didn't burn. It transformed. The Hagia Sophia became a mosque. And with that change, the religious power map of the world started to shift. Russia, watching from the north, saw itself as the new guardian of Eastern Orthodoxy. It started calling Moscow the Third Rome. The Vatican, too, felt the loss. The unity of Christendom had been shaken. Meanwhile, Islam had a new symbol of triumph. This wasn't just about who worshipped where. It was about identity, about survival, and about who would guide the spiritual path of millions for centuries to come. The Ottoman power surge. Can one victory launch an empire into overdrive? That's exactly what happened after the fall. With Constantinople under Ottoman control, Mehmed I moved his capital there and renamed it Istanbul. From that moment, the city wasn't just a conquest, it was a launchpad. The Ottomans started expanding faster than ever. In the Balkans, deeper into the Middle East, and across North Africa. Constantinople gave them not just prestige, but power. It was a global statement that the Ottoman Empire was here to stay. For over 400 years, they would dominate trade, culture, and politics from this very seat. But here's what many people miss. The Ottomans didn't erase the city's past. They built on it. They kept the roads, the aqueducts, even parts of the Byzantine bureaucracy. They added mosques, markets, and schools. They turned a Christian empire's capital into the heartbeat of the Islamic world without wiping its slate clean. Political shockwaves through Europe. How do kings and queens react when they realize they're not the biggest force on the board anymore? The fall of Constantinople woke up Europe like a slap in the face. If the mighty Byzantines could fall, who was safe? The response? More armies, more walls, more alliances. Countries started banding together to stop the Ottoman advance. The Holy Roman Empire tried. Spain and Portugal fortified their coastlines. Even tiny kingdoms began pouring money into defense. It was fear that brought them together, fear that they might be next. This urgency also pushed European rulers to tighten control at home. Centralized monarchies became more common. Standing armies became the norm. The old feudal systems started to fade. Politics got more serious, more brutal, and more focused on survival. A city that still echoes today. How does a city that fell over 500 years ago still speak through the stones of a modern metropolis? Walk through Istanbul today, and you're not just seeing a Turkish city. You're seeing layers of empires, Roman columns, Byzantine churches, Ottoman palaces, all stacked into one timeline. Constantinople lives on, not just in museums or history books, but in architecture, language, food, and identity. It's a living symbol of how history doesn't just vanish, it transforms. And the fall of this city is a reminder of how quickly power can shift, how legacies can bend, and how one moment can echo for centuries. We still feel the effects of that day in 1453, in trade, in religion, in culture, in how nations see themselves. It's not just a story from the past, it's a lens to understand the present. So the fall of Constantinople wasn't just the end of a city. It was the spark that set the world on a whole new path. From shifting religions to launching explorations, from changing borders to sparking ideas, it shaped the modern age in ways we still feel today. And that's why history matters. It explains the world around us. If you found this journey through time as fascinating as we did, hit that subscribe button and join us here, the Edutaining History channel, where we bring the past back to life every single week.